you will recall that I've said on numerous occasions to keep your bench clean, to only have 1 or 2 items on your bench at one time, because it is very easy to get them mixed up and plug in the wrong thing. Well, here's a lesson that I just learned about 5 minutes ago when I was setting up for this shoot. I was getting all the stuff together, setting it up, thinking about what I was going to do and say and how I was going to present it, and I had 2 things in my hand. I had my tester and I had my soldering iron that I'm going to demonstrate how to test. And without checking, I plugged one into the PowerPoint, walked out to the shed to find the clamp that I'm going to use, came back in, and I smelt something burning, and you may be able to see that. I burnt a hole in my wife's tablecloth. Fortunately she's not home, but boy am I going to cop it when she does get here. So the lesson is, as I've said on several occasions before, be very careful not to have more than 1 or 2 things together on your bench, because it is so easy to get it mixed up. This is the beginning of the revision section. It covers pretty well everything we've learnt, and it just adds a few extra pieces of information that we haven't actually covered, but which is included in the standard AS 3760 2010, of which you should all have a copy. The standard specifies the procedures for testing low voltage single phase and polyphase plug-in equipment and RCDs in the workplace. The standard does not apply to equipment above 2.5 metres that is not an earth situation. An earth situation is somewhere where you can be touching any part of the appliance and something that is earth at the same time. It doesn't cover anything that you have to dismantle to test. Only suitably qualified people can dismantle portable appliances. This includes testing mineral insulated metal sheathed elements, as I mentioned earlier. It doesn't cover anything that is not connected by a plug. We call that either fixed or hard wiring, and you do not need to test anything that is fixed wire. Medical equipment comes under a separate standard, as do portable generators, and anything that is demonstration stock in a shop that you'll often see in a retail. They'll have televisions or DVDs or anything out for people to look at. You do not need to bother with them. What you see here is the back of an IEC socket. You can see the blue and the brown wires going in it, the active and the neutral, and just above the top of the self-tapper you can see the earth pin, and hanging freely in the air, very close to it, is the spade clip holding the earth. The two were never connected from new. Now this is in a water cooler in a railway workshop on a concrete floor. It is an accident waiting for something to go wrong. And this was brand new, straight out of the packet. As you can see, there's no dirt or anything on it. It was brand new. I cannot count the number of IEC leads, moulded plugs, that I have found with reverse polarity. I even found one once with a reversed earth neutral. This caused lots of problems. When they plugged any load in, it tripped the RCD. And this was in a moulded plug straight from the factory. I mentioned earlier about a jug with a wiper on the earth that isn't strong enough and doesn't quite make. That was actually brought in to one of my lectures to demonstrate the technique of testing a jug with a metal element. And when we tested it, brand new, out of the box, it didn't have an earth. I'm only telling you this to point out that it is probably not best practice to put stuff to service expecting it to come out of the factory perfectly. That is not always the case. Class 1 equipment has one layer of basic insulation and is protected by an earth wire. Remember, Class 1 has one layer, and you can find it in clause 1.4.2 of the standard AS-NZS 3760 2010. Class 2 equipment has 2 layers of insulation and no earth. It relies on the 2 layers of insulation for protection. It is identified by the double square, which is not always there. You can sometimes identify it by having 2 pins and no earth, provided you can prove or identify that the lead is original. It hasn't been replaced. Just another point on that too, that if you cannot identify something as being Class 2, it must be tested as Class 1. It must default to Class 1. It's possible that it could be a piece of Class 1 equipment with a broken earth wire. If this is the case, testing it will give you exactly the same result as a piece of Class 2 equipment in good condition. Testing frequencies are found in Table 4 of AS-NZS 3760, of which you should all have a copy. Curiously, the table does not mention demolition and construction. This comes under OH&S standards and requires testing every 3 months. To help you remember your testing frequencies, I have created an Excel spreadsheet which you will find under your main menu called Easy Test Record Keeping Spreadsheet. When you do the test, as I have said ad nauseum, the first and most important test you must do is the visual inspection, following all established procedures. Then, if it is Class 1, test the earth continuity. Remember, it must be less than 1 ohm. Class 2 does not have an earth, therefore this test can be ignored. If you're doing an insulation resistance test, you must first do a continuity test if it isn't included automatically in your test equipment. You must prove that the test voltage is going to all parts of the appliance under test. The insulation resistance must exceed 1 megohm, 1 million ohms. If you are doing the earth leakage test, the earth leakage for Class 1 must not exceed 5 milliamps, and for Class 2 it must not exceed 1 milliamp. Remember, if you can't positively identify something as being Class 2, it must be tested as if it is Class 1. Extension leads must have the correct polarity, and they are tested as for Class 2, that is 1 megohm between the active cables and earth, or 1 milliamp of earth leakage. You must do the wiggle test. I showed you that in the testing extension leads and power boards, where you wriggle the cable and watch the results. If anything is loose, it will flicker. With our equipment, I don't think it will with the ones that do a programmed test, because they are not a live reading. Covers and guards are intact, and particularly power boards have the correct current rating.